Hello YouTube, my name is Ojis and welcome to a brand new series on this channel. Once again talking about Super Smash Bros. But this time is Will They Be DLC, in which we're going to look at certain characters, one character per episode on a weekly basis, and discuss can they be DLC. And today obviously we're going to be talking about the biggest cash cow, I should say, not biggest cash cow, but one of the biggest names in terms of DLC, and yes, he would be the biggest cash cow that could be for a DLC character. I'm talking about Goku, but before we get to Goku, let's discuss a few things. The first thing is the giveaway that I was doing in December. It's finished, the winner has been contacted, and the reward, the 15 euros, has been given. Now, out of respect for the person, they requested not to have their name both on a video and on Gleam, so that is that. But anyway, let's start off with this episode of of the game of this series, the first episode of this series. I'm talking, I believe, this is the third, and this will be, I believe, the final time we'll be discussing Goku on this channel in a specific video. If Goku happens to be related to something, I will talk about it in the future, but in a video specifically, unless there's some major shift, like either Goku gets confirmed or the possibility changes drastically. We have a very solid confirmation then that it won't happen, or it could happen, then there won't be any videos on Goku outside of this one. And this one is going to be a little bit different from the videos I've done before, because there happened something recently that drastically changes the situation. One that kind of confirms what I and many other people have been saying all along, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So, Goku gets requested a lot for Super Smash Bros. I believe one of the most, if not the most requested character amongst them, one of the most requested characters out there, obviously the most requested non-video game character out there. And that's where the things in the debate lies. Some people believe that Goku can be in Smash Bros. Because he has been in video games before, he has been in Nintendo systems, he has been in video games since 1980 or the 80s roughly, not 1980, but roughly the 80s. He has been on the NES, he has been on the SNES, he has been on every single Nintendo platform. Did he make... No, I think the Wii U did not have a Dragon Ball game. Did it? No, it didn't. Okay, so apart from Wii U, every Nintendo system, and the Virtual Boy, but the Virtual Boy doesn't really count, has had a Dragon Ball game outside of Wii U. Now, the most people that support Goku will say that he counts as a video game character that he could be in. Now, Goku does fill a lot of requirements to be in Super Smash Bros. He's an iconic character, although not from video games, and although not with gaming not Goku making his mark on gaming. He's a very iconic character. And he has been on Nintendo systems before. Wow, my brain stopped there for a second. He has been on Nintendo video game systems before, like I mentioned. Every single system outside of the Wii U, which is an accomplishment to say the least. I believe he was on GameCube. Was he on? No, I think he was on GameCube. I'm pretty sure he was. I think the Dragon Ball Budokai games were, because during that time period, the systems were the closest they've ever been or ever will be again. So yeah, I mean all three, not, you know, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One are basically the same system with different OSs. But that's beside the point. So in those scenarios, he does meet the requirement. He doesn't, however, meet the requirement of being a video game character. Now, this video game character argument is brought up a lot, and the only really big safe defense mechanisms that people used to counter that is that Rob does not originate from a video game, and that technically speaking, James Bond was considered for Super Smash Bros. Melee, and once again, he's not a video game character. Now, on both of those scenarios, we are comparing two different situations. It's good to remember that Nintendo throughout the 90s and the early 2000s was the copyright holders for Dragon Ball, for GoldenEye, for 007 games and all that stuff. But it's good to mention, licensing issues were the thing that most likely would have put away James Bond, but we don't particularly know why Bond never made it into Melee. I think it was considered for a while and then thrown aside. I don't really think there's something that confirms or denies it either way. If there is, tell me in the comments. But outside of that, the only major argument is Rob. That's actually in the game. The problem with Rob is, while not in a video game, not originating from a video game, he does come from the industry. He was what Nintendo utilized. It's good to remember. People forget their history. But in the 1980s, there was a major video game crash in the United States. Now, Europe did not suffer as much because Europe wasn't going through the video game console high that it's going on today, and since the PlayStation 1 era, PlayStation 1 was the first console to truly break through the European market, which is what distinguished PlayStation, particularly the PlayStation 1 compared to other systems around that time period as well, because it was very competitive in multiple markets until not only Final Fantasy VII coming out, but also the European market, where Sony had the lead and the market basically all to themselves. How they're, no, I was gonna say how they have it today, but today it's not that way, because France, the Switch showed the most, and in the UK the Switch was second, I believe only surpassed by PS4, but not by that much, but that doesn't really matter to the topic at hand. But like I was saying, there was a crash, and now the console, the NES or the Famicom in Japan had no problem selling in Japan. They had no problem selling the system, but they would have some in the West, specifically the United States, which, as we all know, it's the biggest video game market for video games in the world. Nintendo was not going to sell the system, and retailers particularly didn't want to sell a video game system, specifically and especially after what happened with the Atari 2600 and the crash of the video game market, which we all know the story, and we all know what happened with E.T., for example, one of the biggest disasters of all time. So how did Nintendo make it? How did Nintendo shape the gaming universe as we know it today? Because it's very important to remember, if Nintendo, say what you want, I don't care if you're a Sony fan or a Microsoft fan or a Nintendo fan or you're a PC gamer, we all have to remember, no matter what, Nintendo played a huge part in getting gaming where it is today, mostly because the games that we all love and all play most likely wouldn't have happened, or would happen very differently, if Nintendo never stride forth with the NES. It's good to remember, opening that market, the American market, was pivotal for consoles. Now sure, you can say whatever you want, but a lot of it, the gaming as we know today, because let's be honest, money was the biggest money maker for game developers, was and still is the console market. Well, nowadays phones, technically speaking, have that, but from the 80s until very recently, it was consoles that made the most amount of money for developers. Now PC could have been that, in an alternate timeline we might be speaking differently, but we live in this universe, in this timeline, and in this timeline it was the handheld, it was the market, the home console market and the handheld market that brought up the most amount of revenue for video game companies. And how did Nintendo circumvent the fact that in the States retailers were like, you're not selling it, we don't want it, was to sell the NES as a toy with an accessory, Rob. And Rob did work with some games. Rob is an accessory, he's a hardware, basically, he's hardware. If there was a joke going around of Nintendo Labo getting a character in, the Labo guy, and that Labo thing had the Switch as a ground pound and the Joy-Con on its back. That would have been hardware. And not only that, but Smash Brothers is not afraid of bringing in hardware into the games. If you played Smash Bros, the Super Scope is in the game. Super Scope was basically the light gun, or the NES Zapper for the Super Nintendo, and the Zapper, technically speaking, is a part of the moveset of the Duck Hunt duo, because they do utilize the Zapper, basically. So that's a thing there. But moving on, that's why Rob gets kind of a free pass. But more importantly, Rob is owned by Nintendo, something that Mr. Goku isn't. Once again, he has his roots in video gaming. While he wasn't a video game character, he was a video game accessory. Those are two different, they're two different, very completely different things, but very in the same realm. While Goku was never intended to be a video game character, he just happened to have a video game, or happened to have video games, I should say, and well, it happened to be that way. Rob was built to be a part of a video game system, was part to sell a video game system. Goku was designed to sell manga, and then the anime basically, and then the games, but mostly the manga. It was a story told by Akira Toriyama on the manga pages that then happened to have an adaptation for an anime and for manga. But let's, for 1 second, see that Nintendo concedes. Sakurai concedes, not Nintendo. Nintendo could very likely, Nintendo probably, most likely. I'm guessing at the very least, like, there's a 25% chance that Nintendo gave Sakurai a list of characters and Goku was a part of that list. But most likely Sakurai, I believe, would said no manga. Obviously, because Sakurai has already said obviously not. Let's say that Sakurai does change his mind. Now, people like to say he changes his mind a lot. You can look at Pac-Man, you can look at the Villager, you can look at the Miis. He changed his mind. He didn't. He said that he couldn't think of a moveset for those characters. Obviously, later on he did. Or he didn't see them as fighters. Later on he did. The Mii fighters, I believe it was the... I don't see them as fighters. The same thing I believe with the Villager. But later on he changed his mind. But those are very small changes. They're not seismic toss or earthquake-inducing changes. You know, it's funny to me that people to this day call Sakurai a massive liar for he thought that he didn't think of a moveset for Pac-Man, or he couldn't think of the Villager and the Miis as fighters, but they're in Smash Brothers. While these exact same people will defend politicians that said in 2007 that they didn't really care for gay marriage, and then years later like, no, we support it. I changed my mind, I don't know why, but I changed my mind. I support gay marriage nowadays because it's important. You know, you cannot excuse one over the other. People change their minds, especially when it's years on. Like, the Villager Mii thing was in 2006, 2007, or maybe 2008. The Smash Bros. 4 came out in 2014. Development began in 2012, midway through 2012, after March 2012. So, or in March 2012, I should say. There's about a very least 4-year time gap. People changed their minds. Not only that, the Miis were in a lot of video games, and the Miis kind of already were fighters. They already swang swords around in Wii Sports Resort, and they kind of sort of also boxed in Wii Sports. But let's say that for a second that Sakurai says Goku is gonna be in. And let's say for another second, let's imagine that Shueisha, the people that own the Dragon Ball, would be okay with Goku going into a video game that's not owned by them, or by characters that do a crossover that they don't own. That's the thing. Shueisha, the people that own the Dragon Ball, they don't do crossovers with other people. You know that Marvel has done a crossover with DC. Smash Brothers is all about crossovers. Technically speaking, the only true crossover in the game in the world right now, Marvel, you're a team up. You know, Smash Brothers, the original Smash Brothers and Melee are kind of team ups as well. They're not really crossovers. Crossovers would bring in different companies versus one. But Shueisha doesn't do IP crossover or team ups or that crossovers with anybody outside of Shueisha owned IPs. Dragon Ball will have a crossover with, say, Yu-Gi-Oh! Before they have one with Batman. They'll have one with Naruto before they do one with Superman. They'll have one with One Piece before they do it with the Powerpuff Girls. I know the last one is a exaggeration, but still, Goku and Dragon Ball will not cross over with anything. Won't cross over with anything that's not owned by Shueisha, because that's how Shueisha operates. So let's say that Sakurai changes his mind about Goku and non-video game characters in Smash. Let's say that Shueisha is okay with characters not from video games in Smash, or Goku crossing over with non-Shueisha characters. This opens multiple scenarios. The first one is, why just Goku? Goku arguably has not had an impact on gaming. He has not done anything in gaming. You can say, but the video games kept Dragon Ball going throughout all the years that Dragon Ball didn't have a series. Well, that's true. You could also say that, technically speaking, Team 4-Star brought Dragon Ball back to relevancy and made Dragon Ball popular once again, popular enough to have Super. Now, you may agree with it or not, but it's hard to deny the fact that all of their episodes for Dragon Ball have millions upon millions of views on YouTube. So maybe they did help somehow, some way revitalize the interest on Dragon Ball. And arguably, Dragon Ball has not had a major game until Fighters. But let's say for a second that he's in. Why just Goku? Why stop there? Batman and James Bond have had a much better and longest reigning, much bigger impacts in gaming. GoldenEye 007 and the Arkham games have undeniably changed the way games work. GoldenEye proved how to do, not only that you could do first-person shooters on console, it proved to be popular. One of the most popular and one of the best-selling N64 games. Funnily enough, a shooter was one of the best-selling games on the Nintendo system. And people say Nintendo fans don't buy shooters. Okay, sure, it was rare, but it still counts. And Batman, the Arkham series, changed adventure games, action-adventure games for ages. You know, for a while, every game or action-adventure game was trying to do the Arkham combat, to the point that people were like, yeah, it's an Arkham-style game. Heck, Spider-Man recently was basically a Batman game with a Spider-Man skin. In terms of combat, don't get too crazy. But anyway, that leaves it open for those two. Why not? Why those two? Why just Goku and not these two? But then I think first there was one thing I think. But there's one thing. What the hell am I trying to say here? But there's one thing that even if Nintendo decided to do Goku, there's one thing that will stop. There's one thing that undeniably will stop Nintendo from choosing to go ahead and allow Goku to be in Super Smash Brothers. One thing only. The thing that just recently happened. The way that Shueisha, Toei Animation, allegedly Toei Animation is to blame, but I think Shueisha also has a hand in it. The way they've been handling the streaming of the competitive scene and of tournaments. Dragon Ball FighterZ has been pulled from a lot of tournaments recently, and apparently it almost didn't make it to EVO Japan, if I'm not mistaken. And it seems like Toei Animation might be the one that is going around probably requesting a crap ton of money from people, not from tournaments, not to run their game. And now sure, maybe I'll be wrong. Today this goes up on the 13th, and tomorrow it's the Dragon Ball Super Showcase, which is going to showcase apparently games for about Dragon Ball, maybe season 2 for Fighters, and that's why they're keeping it down low. But it's unclear. We really don't know what's gonna happen with that. But it does seem like the Dragon Ball competitive scene, and from everything I've seen, the competitive scene has taken a huge hit. And that's the thing. Funimation and Toei Animation, or Funimation, not Funimation, Toei Animation and Shueisha would have a big hand in any way, shape, or form. They would have a hand in their game, in a game that has their character. You could say, but Nintendo owns the rights to Smash Brothers. That's true, but you want to know who owns the rights for Dragon Ball FighterZ? Bandai Namco. But because it's a Dragon Ball game, that includes Shueisha and Toei Animation. If Nintendo were to put Goku in Smash, not Funimation, why do I keep going back to Funimation? Toei Animation and Shueisha would still be there and have some holding rights on the images in Smash Bros. Why? Because Goku is in it. So for the tournament scene, for the competitive scene, Goku would be completely irrelevant, because the Shueisha might be requesting some top dollar to have Goku appear. So not only does Goku not appear, but the Dragon Ball stage, Dragon Ball music, that's out of the question. And Nintendo might just look at it like, why haggle ourselves? What's the hassle? Why would we do that to ourselves? It's bad enough we have to deal with Square Enix. And that's a topic for another day. Trust me, I have 4 episodes planned for this series, and one of them will cover someone from Square Enix. Unless we'll get to it. But with everything that's been going on, I feel like Goku already was a character that was doomed not to be in Smash. Despite how many it doesn't matter how many fan requests it happened, for crying out loud. It's the same thing with Shrek and all that stuff. And not only that, look at how long it took King K. Rool and Ridley to make it into Smash Bros. Despite being the most requested character since like Melee. So almost 20 years now. Actually, I would say probably since Smash 64. But anyway, that'll be it for this video for Super Smash Bros. Who will they be DLC for Goku? The probability of Goku being in Smash Bros. Overall is like frozen at a below 0. I think with everything going on with Shueisha, the Nintendo themselves actually wanting the character in, and Sakurai's whole stance on non-video game characters in Super Smash Bros. Kills Goku's momentum into the possibility, or Goku's possibilities into being in Super Smash Bros. Tell me in the comment section, what do you think of Goku being in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate or the next Smash Bros. Do you think it will happen? Why would you think that, given everything that Sakurai has said? And no, Sakurai doesn't change his mind as much as people say that he does. Actually, look at what he says, not what game journalists or people spread around. I, for a while, also believed a lot of the shit that was going around on the internet until I actually looked into the Sakurai did not say that in what was it? Source Gaming, or when I started seeing people proclaim that he said DLC was not going to be a thing when he never said that. So, but anyway, apart from that, tell me also, who would you like to see in this series? As of right now, I have 4 episodes planned, like I said. Next week's episode will be on the 20th. Hopefully, we'll be going live on the 20th. Again, I say hopefully, because the Nintendo Direct could happen and reveal a character or 2, I don't know. But next week, it will be we'll be discussing Travis Touchdown. Yeah, Travis Touchdown will be the second character of this series. I originally gonna put somebody else in that spot, but with with No More Heroes coming out just on the just the day, couple of days before, it seemed like the appropriate time to talk about. So tell me what you think in the comments about this video. And yes, one thing I'm gonna point out is that you might see some of my other videos with comments on, and sometimes I don't respond to comments. The reason why I don't do it is not that I don't wanna, is that sometimes I don't know what to say. Sometimes I'll type something out, I look at it, I have something in my head to respond to somebody, I type it, I look at it, it's like, it doesn't seem right. Delete it, and I'm like, I'll be back to it, and I never remember to, or sometimes YouTube doesn't even give me notifications about it. And that's just, or sometimes I have something typed out completely, go to respell something, and autocorrect, and because I'm a fucking idiot, I forget that I have smart gesture on sometimes, and I press it too hard, right click it too hard, and move the mouse, and I'm back one page, and everything else is just, well, it doesn't exist anymore. Everything is deleted, so I have to retype everything, and sometimes I'm like, oh, fuck it, I'm not doing it. Yeah, so that's just my thing. That's me explaining why sometimes I don't respond to comments, because sometimes, yeah. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Join me again next week for Travis Touchdown, and I'll see you guys next time. Yeah, and also the post thing will show the Smash Ultimate playlist if you wanna watch. So yeah, go watch the classic one. It's actually fun. And so is World of Light, surprisingly enough. But anyway, see you guys then. I'll see you guys next time, I should say. Why then? I don't know. I'm crazy, but I don't know. Fuck it. Go to the outro. Jesus Christ, I'm terrible today. I don't want to look at the camera anymore even.